Welcome back, Wheel of Time fans, to Dan of the Red Hand. I'm Dan, and today we're going to do the full spoiler review of the season finale of Amazon's The Wheel of Time series, The Eye of the World. Before we go any farther, this is the spoiler version, so full spoilers for the books as well as the series. If you're still here, we're going to get into it in just a second, but I want to say one thing. I'm going to change the way I'm going to do this particular full spoiler review. I'm not going to go scene by scene and cover all the same stuff that I covered in the non-spoiler review. Instead, I'm going to look at this episode from a book reader's perspective and kind of explain some of the changes. Yeah, I'm still going to hit some of the things that were changed, some of the things that were the same, but really just kind of give it a, here's why some of those changes were made, and some kind of WTF moments on my end as well from watching the episode. So for the cold open, when we saw 3,000 years ago, I think we were all like, oh, here it is. Here's that prologue that we all know and love. Not the new one, the old, the original. But that's not what we got. Instead, we got Luther and Telamon talking to Latra Latra Posey Desume, who in the books was the person who was very much against Luther's plan. In fact, she wanted to use the Chosen Call to go and do the same thing, but they had lost the access keys. For all the reasons she brought up here, hey, the Dark One could potentially corrupt the One Power, that could be destructive, could set us back thousands of years, are all the reasons that she stated. So good on them for that. Now, why didn't we get what we thought we were going to get? It's because of the way that this series is playing up the Dark One, which is the same way that Rand viewed the Dark One. And it's that Ishmael is the Dark One. So you can't have him later on this series, push his mask with that arrow and then show his true Ishmael face, and then have him back there as Ishmael talking to Lews Therin. It wouldn't work very well because it's supposed to be the Dark One. They haven't separated those two. And even Rand in the books didn't really separate those two, I think, until The Dragon Reborn, like book 3. So even though we as readers kind of knew because Moraine said, I was like, that couldn't have been the Dark One. The Dark One can't be killed. They haven't done all that here. So the implication is that's still the Dark One. So they can't give us that creation of Dragonmail prologue that we get in the books. That's why we got this different, Age of Legends scene. And let's just say the Age of Legends, and looking out that window, looks pretty cool. And I like the interaction between these two characters. And it hit all the points it needed to hit. Like, hey, we're both Aes Sedai. This is how the corruption of the one side happened. And all of those particular big notes that it needed to get across. So wasn't the cool. Was there issues with it? Absolutely. I think could have been done a little bit better. I both love and hate the fact that it was in the Old Tongue because I really like the fact that it looks like they fleshed out the Old Tongue, so it's actually going to be a language. And, people can learn it like Dothraki and Klingon, and that'll be great. But at the same time, it made it very hard to kind of digest the scene. It's a good thing this is on a streaming service so we can go back and rewatch. Tarwin's Gap is obviously one of the big differences from the book. It was much farther away from Faldara in the books, and it's much closer here. Big missed opportunities here, in my opinion. We didn't get the cool, you could have had a really cool big battle scene of Shienaran heavy cavalry riding into the trial election of the best heavy cavalry in the world, and we didn't get that. Instead, we got them shooting out of arrow slits with crossbows, and I thought that was a really big missed opportunity here to have that. I understand that with the way that they were doing the Eye of the World, we're not going to get the, glowing Rand in the sky kind of saving the battle, but I still think we could have had the big battle there, and that was a big missed opportunity. So let's look at Faldara. Again, a lot of this not in the books, but not bad in the story context they're telling it in. We do get Pat and Fane entering the city and, basically escaping with the Ruby Hilton dagger as well as the Horn of Valir, which is two things in the books that do happen. So that kind of stuff happens. But outside of that, there's a lot of stuff here that wasn't there, but isn't necessarily bad. There's a great scene between Lan and Nynaeve where she's like, yeah, I didn't really track you. I tracked Moraine. And then his dialogue with her, I will hate the man you choose because he's not me. I'll love him if he makes you smile. That stuff was directly out of the book. So they're still bringing some of the books into it, but they're not retelling the books. And if you wanted a 100% rehash of the books, you should probably just stop watching because you're not going to get it here. But if you're that kind of person, you should probably stop watching every single Marvel movie because none of them are a 100% rehash of the stories told in the comics either. Okay, so let's talk about Amalisa linking with everybody. It kind of shows like the books, but it's kind of not quite book accurate. But we're going to throw it aside and say that at least they had Nynaeve having the brightest one power, strands, whatever you want to call it, and Egwene having the next most, and the others being significantly duller compared to those two. And you kind of see the strength of the people as they burn out in order. The only difference would have been that, you know, maybe a Melissa, but I guess if she's controlling everybody's power, she would burn out last. Nonetheless, that whole thing with Nynaeve going to Egwene and kind of taking the burning away from her onto herself, obviously not book accurate. I don't know what happened there. Do me a favor, book readers, in the comments, let me know what you think happened there, because at this point, I'm just at a loss. Nonetheless, Melissa does burn herself out, and I do think that Nynaeve wasn't quite 100% burned out. There is a certain look of like death, and then the people fall over when they've burned themselves out completely. It doesn't look like they can just burn themselves out with one power and go on about their day. It looks like they die from it. Which, again, that is a departure from the books, but it doesn't look like Nynaeve actually dies. It looks like Amelisa dies, lets go of the power, Nynaeve lets go of the power, and then falls on Egwene, and Egwene later heals her. I don't know if that's going to have an effect on how much she can channel later or not. Maybe this is like the first instance that we're going to see in here of someone burning themselves out, but still living afterwards. I hope not, because Nynaeve still needs to do a lot more channeling, but kind of a okay, neatish kind of scene, visually stunning at times. I'm really wondering if COVID and budget didn't start to affect this episode, because there's a chance for a lot of big fight scenes, and they skipped past them and did it with a very small amount of actors. So Fane does still enter Faldara. He does it this time with a password, meaning there's still a dark friend in Faldara, which Lord Dakota did say, and I'm wondering if it isn't him. But he's dead now, so who knows? Probably dead. Uno too, and that makes me sad. While we're talking about being sad, let me talk about the most disappointing character in this episode, Perrin. Perrin was a complete disappointment in this episode. I don't know what they're doing with this character now. It looked like they might be setting him up to be a little more oomph, but then last episode you had him talking about the Way of Leaf, which I get, he's like that, but this episode, he seemed very conflicted between whether to try and take up arms or try to stick to that more peaceful, non-violent way, which I like that, but it didn't come across well. It didn't, I don't know if it was directing, if it was acting, or a combination of the two, but this Perrin that we get in this episode kind of sucked to me. So, you know, blast me in the comments for that. I didn't like the portrayal of Perrin in this particular episode. Somebody I did like, though, was Padan Fain. Even though he stabbed Loyal with the Shatter Lagoth dagger, which I thought killed people pretty much instantly. I don't think we've seen it in here in this series yet. But that was very much the implication in the books. So, man, I'll be flat out. If they kill off Loyal, I'm going to be very mad. I might not keep watching. This channel may go away. But I don't think that's what they're doing. I think that Loyal's going to be okay. I mean, he's a big guy. It's a small dagger. Maybe they're getting rid of some of the effects of that dagger on other people, because we haven't seen it yet. People that are not holding it. So maybe that has a lot to do with it. Maybe it'll affect the way Loyal acts in future episodes. Who knows? Still sad about Uno, though. On Padan Fain, he is clearly powered up in this series, which I'm kind of okay with. He does seem... The only thing I don't know. I'm conflicted on that, because part of his character was, there was a slight bit of tragedy. It was almost a Smeagol-like character in the way that he was corrupted, but they might be trying to get away from that to get rid of some of those comparisons. And, you know, I don't know. I like the way the actor is playing him. So far, I like him. It's just clearly not book accurate, but I don't mind the upgrading per se, but he does seem less like a hound and more like one of the Dark Ones chosen. So let's start talking about Rain and Moraine. I had no problems with the Blight and how quickly condensed the travel is. We saw that in the Ways. We've seen that at other times. And when they couldn't do it, they just skipped forward a month. So we kind of knew that was going to happen. That part didn't bother me really at all. I liked the whole idea of the Seven Towers of Malkir and Moraine saying, hey, years ago, that was miles from here, and now it's right here. So clearly that shows the Dark One's influence on the world. I don't have a problem with that. Now let's talk about Rand's first dream sequence. I actually really like this one. I really like this dream sequence for a few reasons. One, You get to see the actor who's playing Ishmael. You know, every other time we've seen him with his burning face mask, he's just been screaming. Now he's got to have a conversation. So when Rand shoots him in the eye, he just kind of pushes it in and it takes the mask with it. And you see the actor that plays Ishmael, so you can have that discussion and he can emote. That's something you got to get used to if you expect to see people behind masks and big helmets all the time. It's not going to happen because they want to be able to see the actor emote. That's part of, you know, what transitioning to this to screen is going to entail. So just expect that going forward. You're going to see a lot more of those type of decisions being made. That said, in this scene, he does a wonderful job of, you know, just questioning Rand and planting all these seeds of doubt. You don't have a plan. You don't know how to use that sword. Have you ever touched the power? You came with one Aes Sedai. You came with 99 companions that were much, you know, more powerful than her, and you still failed last time. These are all implanting those seeds of doubt within Rand that he's going to try to use later. What we don't get is we don't get Shemesta. And I think that is because they're changing the way the Eye of the World works. And honestly, he didn't do that much in the books. Yes, he had a big plot point where he killed a Forsaken, but outside of that, for the grand scheme of things in this 15-book series, nothing else was done because he died right there. He came on screen, you met him, he killed something, he died, he was gone. So, actually the person that he killed isn't even in this episode. So not having him, you're not really losing anything. So I don't necessarily have a problem with cutting Shemesta. I kind of knew that it was going to be just Ishii and Rand there, or the Dark One if you want to, and Rand there in this battle. The other Forsaken were going to be there like they were in the books, and I was right. And honestly, this quote-unquote fight was, in my opinion, a little bit, I don't even know if it was better, but it was different. I kind of liked it. I liked it a lot, honestly. I liked the idea of Ishii going, okay, boom, I'm dropping you into a dream world again, and I'm going to show you your idyllic, you know, path ahead, your idyllic life, and try to get you, because all the seeds of doubts, to choose this as the way going forward and trick you into releasing the Dark One or turning to the Shadow, which I think is what he's really trying to do, is trying to turn him to the Shadow. Just let Sidene flow through you. It's fine. Let all that dark corruption flow through you. That's turning him to the Shadow is what he's trying to do there. But I really like the way he did it, and I like that they used the scene with Rand and Egwene together, having Joya as a nod to the books from Egwene's testing for Accepted. I like that. This was a good change. This is the way you take something from a book, throw it into the series, clear nod, but in a way that book readers don't expect. So we're still surprised, but we can appreciate the actual scene still. I really like that aspect of this. Now we have something, if they do show her accepted test later, that'll be something different that'll surprise us. So that was a good little change, and I had no problem with it. I also like some of the parallels that I'll talk about in my spoiler video to other books, as well as the fact that Rand realized that's not the woman that I fell in love with. That's not the woman I love. The woman I love actually wants to be a Wisdom or now an Aes Sedai. And I like the fact that he channels back through that Terran that Moraine gave him. Which, by the way, that Terran that Moraine gave him is the stand-in for the pool of clean, uncorrupted Sidene that was at the Eye of the World. So kind of, you have to, it's a roundabout way, but again, that shows kind of like that different turning of the wheel type of a intent behind this series that, hey, it's the same thing. This was just like that pool was, you know, hundreds of channelers putting all their power into it. That's what the Terran was. That's the stand-in for that pool. Just like the floor, I think, is the stand-in for the first seal in the Dark One's prison. As Rand channels and you see Ishmael kind of fade away, notice that he does kind of fade away, but he gives a little smirk. He won. Did he get to turn Rand to the Shadow? No, but Rand just broke an already weakened seal in the Dark One's prison, which is probably going to release Ishmael fully, not just in the dream. I think the only place that he could show up in his, you know, body is there at the Eye of the World. I think he can only show up in dreams elsewhere. We'll get to that more in theory videos. Nonetheless, I really like the interactions he has with Moraine. Are the book accurate? Nope. But here's some hints to you that is pretty cool. Yeah, I don't think that she is cut off from the true source. I don't think she's been stilled. I think she has been shielded and that has been tied off. We'll get into that in the Easter eggs video onto why I think that. And I really like the fact that she immediately pulled that dagger and put it up to his throat, ready to kill him. Because that's what Moraine would do. If she thought the world was on the line, she would trade a life for the world. 100% Moraine would do that. I am here for that kind of a Moraine. That is who she is, in my opinion. However, after all this, letting Rand go off in his own way is not the Moraine that I know and not a Moraine that I'm here for. And I really don't understand that decision, other than maybe it was because Moraine had just been cut off from the source and she's still like, holy shit, what's going on? That's the only thing I could take from that. In the end, I don't mind the battle. I don't mind the way it happened. So if you look at it, you got Fane has the dagger and the Horn of Valyr. That's in the books. Major plot points there. I think that first seal in the Dark One's prison, that was Quendiar, because Moraine made a point of, it being Quendiar, it should have been broken. Her saying, I don't think this is the last battle. I think it was the first. I think that's a nod to the first seal is now broken. The other ones might be smaller discs that are more focal points. We'll have to wait and see. I did like the look of it, so we'll see on that. Things that were not in the books, her being shielded and tied off, or potentially stilled. I think it's shielded though. Loyal dying, Perrin just letting Fane walk away, and then what's going to happen with Nynaeve and Egwene? I mean, and Rand walking off into the wilderness of the Blight, a unknown direction. Who knows where that stuff's going to come from? But we also have one of the best scenes in this, and that is the ending, where you get to see those Sanchan ships roll up, and you get to see their Damani. And the Idom look very different, but I am here for it. They look twisted. That looks better than what I pictured in the books for them and what I've seen in concept art or actual approved art. That looks freaking amazing what they have. And I like that. The Sanchan look very different than the way they're described in the books, but I have a theory on that, so we'll cover it later. So my final thoughts on this is it's not obviously not a complete retelling of the books, not even close, but it does hit a lot of the major plot points. And it does wrap up the overarching theme of this season very well. Who is the Dragon Reborn, and will they turn to the Shadow? It's Rand al'Thor, and he did not. So on the aspect of this big plot line coming to an end, at least we got an end at the end of the season, and we have a bunch of questions, like I mentioned earlier, as well as the Sanchan coming in to make you want to keep watching and anticipate season 2. So on that aspect, I think it's a clear win. As far as some misses, yes, there's a lot of misses in this episode. There's a lot of misses in this season that I'll cover in later videos. But overall, I think effective. I think it was good, and I do want to watch more. So go ahead and click that like, subscribe, and bell icon so you're notified whenever I come out with new content. And until next time, have a wonderful day.